Hello brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the channel. And as you can see, my father is sitting directly across from me at a socially safe distance. And you know what that means. It's time for us to talk about some football. NFL free agency has happened, and in light of all the sports around getting canceled and all that stuff, it was comforting in a way to have free agency go on. Unabated.
The NFL offseason is probably about the only thing sports-wise it's going along semi-normally right now.
Yeah. If the coronavirus causes football season to be postponed, especially after everything the Bills just did that we're going to talk about, I'm going to be mad.
Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Yeah,
but we're really not here to talk about that. We kind of wanted to talk about some of the Bills' offseason moves and where that might take them into next year. Maybe for a few minutes at least, get your mind off of everything that's going on out there.
And we may as well start with the biggest news that has come for the Bills, the thing that all the Bills fans around here are talking about. Stefon Diggs has been traded from the Minnesota Vikings to the Buffalo Bills. That is right. This isn't a dream. This isn't a piece of misinformation by Ian Rappaport. This is real. Stefon Diggs is a Buffalo Bill.
I think it's a great move for the Bills. He is one of the premier wide receivers in the league, and he is going to add a lot to that offense next year. Now, I know that there's people out there that are harping, and I don't think any of them are from Buffalo, but there's people out there harping on the fact that they might have given up a little too much. But really, when you think about it, they gave up the 22nd pick in the draft, and the chances of them finding somebody at that pick that are going to help them this year as much as Stefon Diggs will are probably slim and none. So yeah. I think that's a great move. I know that maybe they could have moved up in the draft, but even if they got up into the top 10 and got a guy like Jerry Jeudy or CeCe Lamb, yeah. I just don't think one of them was going to help them as much as Diggs will, and they probably would have given up as much in draft capital to get up that high anyway. So
it is a little surprising for a number of reasons. You kind of alluded to it. It's a pretty deep class for the wide receiver position in this year's draft. So the Bills probably could have held on to that first round pick and gotten a guy who could contribute. But it's like you said, you don't necessarily know that guy's going to be good. But there's a lot of talented receivers in this draft. Jefferson from LSU, Chenault, that guy from Colorado, a lot of people have their eye on. It's a deep wide receiver class.
And they might have been able to get a guy that could contribute this year, if not with the 22nd pick, maybe further on down the road. But they needed more than a contributor, and they got a star.
It hasn't really been there, and this is another reason why the move is kind of surprising. It hasn't really been Brandon Beane's MO to go after to make the big splash that he just did with the Stefon Diggs trade. His moves have been under the radar. He signed guys like John Brown and Cole Beasley, talented players, but not really guys that is going to be a franchise cornerstone. This offseason felt, I don't want to say uncharacteristic, because I wouldn't say he's been a conservative GM, but it is a bit of an out there move for Brandon Beane, I feel like, to go after a guy like Diggs.
Well, I'm thinking two things about the Diggs trade. One is, and this is not to be overlooked, is he's under contract for 4 more years at a pretty reasonable price. Now, I realize he probably won't play out those 4 years for what they're paying him, but it's a start, and it would have been far better than bringing an Amari Cooper or an A.J. Green or somebody like that in here and paying him $20 million right off the get-go. The other thing is, you say that it's unlike Brandon Beane, and that's somewhat true, but in the past, they traded draft picks to move up and get Josh Allen. They traded twice. They traded draft picks to move up to get Tremaine Edmonds. So he does trade draft capital. It's one of the reasons he likes to stockpile the picks. This is the first time he's ever done it for an established star. And I like some of the other moves they've made. I mean, I like the Josh Norman signing. They've signed some role players in along that defensive line where they really needed guys. And I kind of wish they'd have helped out their linebacker depth a little bit more, although A.J. Klein might be the guy. I don't know. But they've done with the rest of the moves. They've done kind of what they did last year.
I think you look at their positions of need, and you look at who's left the team this offseason. Lorenzo Alexander, he retired. Jordan Phillips signed with Arizona. Shaq Lawson signed with Miami. Those, I think, were the three big losses on that team that they needed to replace. And A.J. Klein, he's another veteran linebacker who can provide some experience to what is still a pretty young linebacking group.
I would like to see him get I kind of would like to see him, and maybe it'll come in the draft, but I would kind of like to see them get a little more depth at linebacker. Milano. If you're gonna tell me that Milano, Edmonds, and Klein are their starters, that's pretty. I'm fine with that. I don't know that they have much behind them.
But I like how they went about replacing those guys. They got Mario Addison, who is a very good pass rusher, who's kind of got a reputation of success in the league now, and of course he's a former Panther, so McDermott knows him well, and he should fit in well with his defensive scheme. You got Vernon Butler, also an ex-Panther, kind of had a quieter career, but had a bit of a breakout year last year. So you hope that, not unlike Jordan Phillips that did for us this year. With Butler, I think you're signing him more for what you hope he can do, what you think his ceiling is, as opposed to a guy like Addison, who you're signing because you think you know what you're going to get with a Mario Addison.
I think one of the reasons that Phillips was let go is because you're going to see Oliver get a lot more snaps.
Yeah,
they
didn't. Sure.
They didn't draft him with the 9th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
For him to play 45% of the snaps. He's going to be out there a lot this year, and that's the way it should be. And again, that's why I wouldn't have paid Phillips $10 million.
Yeah. The thing with Oliver is, and I agree, he'll probably get more snaps this season, but McDermott likes to have a wealth of rotation on the defensive line.
And that's fine, but when you got a guy like that can be a star, he's going to play.
Yeah, for sure. He'll play. I would expect that he's going to kind of reverse with Star Latulele. He'll probably play the majority of the snaps, and Latulele will kind of come in as like a platoon player.
And don't forget they have Harrison Phillips coming back next year.
And Harrison Phillips is coming back, so they're gonna have a very deep defensive line, as they did last season, and that's gonna give them a big advantage. I want to switch gears to the other side of the ball now, though, because they made a pretty interesting move that kind of went under the radar on the offensive line. They've added offensive tackle, another former Panther, Darrell Williams, to a 1-year deal. I think a 2-year deal.
No, it is a 1-year deal. You're right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It was a 1-year deal for Darrell Williams. If my calculations are right, they now have 4 tackles officially listed as tackles, and that's not counting Feliciano, who can also play tackle.
That is correct. So I think what that sets up is an interesting possibility of what they're going to do is where they're going to play Cody Ford.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to continue to play him out at right tackle, then you're going to look at Nseki, you're going to look at Darrell Williams, and somebody's going to lose a spot there.
Yeah.
If they think Ford is going to be their right guard, then Feliciano is going to move out of the starting lineup, in which case he would back up both the guard position and the right tackle position, which also does the same thing. So I think really what it comes down to is you have Nseki and Darrell Williams are going to be fighting for one job in training camp.
Yeah, that's probably right. Nseki, I feel like, was a bit of like a placeholder to develop Ford.
That is
last
correct.
Season.
Yes.
I think if anybody's losing a roster spot on that line, he would be the first one that came to mind.
That's probably right.
Now, of course, that all depends on how Ford develops. Like, is he ready to be the regular starter on that line? Because last season, he didn't seem to be. I mean, he played well when he was called upon when Nseki got hurt, but there was still some rough going for him at points in the season.
But he was not so terrible that they're not going to give him a real shot this year.
Yeah.
And whether it's going to be at guard or tackle remains to be seen.
That's the interesting thing. They never seem to know going into these off seasons how the line's going to configure. In the preseason last year, I know Ford played tackle. He also played guard. And now it doesn't seem like they're really committed to having him at either position again, which I don't really know what that says about how they feel about him right now.
Well, I think that what last year said about him was that they want him to be a tackle.
Yeah.
Whether or not he can perform there the way they want, I think they don't know that yet.
Yeah.
But if he's not going to be a tackle, he's still going to have a spot somewhere along the line, which probably would be right guard. They're bringing all 5 starters back on that line. They're bringing back their first backup, which is Spencer Long. So there's a cohesiveness there that they haven't had in many, many years.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good thing. The Quentin Spain signing was a great one. I mean, I'm really glad that they did that. So some of the stuff that they've done, to keep their own players, like signing Spain and extending Poyer, are also great moves that aren't getting talked about a lot.
Oh yeah, I'm very glad they extended Poyer, especially because having him next to him and Micah Hyde have arguably been the best duo and the best duo safeties in the league. Let's wrap this discussion up by talking what do you think next moves are. I think it'll be very interesting to see how the draft plays out now that we no longer have a first round pick.
I don't discount the fact completely that they could look to move back up in the first round. I still think they want to add an edge rusher that could give them a little more impact than Addison will, and I think that they would probably do that at the expense of Troy Murphy. But other than that, I think they're still looking for wide receiver depth. I think they're still looking for defensive line depth. But I don't think they're not looking to break the bank in the draft. They're not looking to get a starter out of there right now.
Running back's another big one. I would expect Singletary's going to be the number one back coming into this year, but I don't know how comfortable I am having T.J. Yeldon be his number 2.
I'm actually okay with them giving Yeldon another shot. I think he kind of got the short end last year, and I think he offers a little bit more than they gave him a chance to show. They will draft a running back for sure, and those guys are always out there in the draft. Plus, there are several solid veteran guys out there still. Yeah. The Carlos Hydes, the Matt Breidas of the world, who, if they wanted to spend a little more money, they could bring in. I'm not worried about running back.
They're looking into it though. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were in on the Melvin Gordon talks.
Well, that's what they say. I'm not so sure about that. I don't think they were going to go anywhere near as high as Denver did to sign Melvin Gordon.
Well, that's probably true, but I think they did make a run. It was reported by
Ian Rappaport.
It was reported by. No, well, he might have reported it, but I mean, I saw multiple sources say that the Bills were in on the Melvin Gordon sweepstakes.
I think when it got presented to the Bills that he was going to get $8 million a year from Denver, they said, nope, thanks.
So that was Buffalo's free agency, and as you could probably tell, it was a very eventful one, a very intriguing free agency. A lot of questions still remain for this team, but I am about as excited and optimistic for the Bills season as I have been probably my entire life of rooting for the Bills. I mean, make no mistake, this is an exciting time to be a Bills fan right now. We actually have people talking about us possibly going to the Super Bowl this year, which I don't really want to jump on that bandwagon just yet, because, I mean, look at the Browns last year. They were the big off-season darlings of last year, and look how that turned out. But I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that does not happen. I'm going to hold out hope that the Bills are for real, and with Stefon Diggs now in the mix and the new pickups they got on defense, I am definitely feeling good right now.
Me too. I'm pretty optimistic for this coming season, and I know we talked about at the beginning that we wanted to get your mind off a little bit of what was going on out there. And I hope we did that, but I just want to say that, when you're out there, if you're, obey the rules, please. If you have a chance to come in contact with a healthcare worker or something like that, they're really the tip of the spear in all this. So do something nice for them, please. And don't forget, I heard a phrase the other day that I really liked, and it was everyday bravery. So don't forget the people that are out there cashing your groceries and ringing you out at the pharmacy and delivering your paper and things like that. And just want to give a shout out to them because they're really a big part of what we're going through these days. And they're out there doing jobs for not a lot of money. And just when you get a chance to help them out, give them a pat on the back or some words of encouragement, please do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you are a healthcare worker or if you are an essential employee at a grocery store or any other establishment, thank you for doing the work, and thank you. We know you're taking a pretty big risk by continuing to go into work, but you're doing it because it needs to be done, and that's what it's all about. That is admirable. I admire you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I said this in a previous video, but it bears repeating. Stay smart, stay informed. In this day and age, being informed on what's going on with reliable information is very important to combating this. But also keep faith and just trust that we're going to get through this okay, and we're going to come out the other side, and hopefully that'll be in time for football season.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to like and subscribe to the channel, it would help us out a lot, and we'd be very grateful. But we're also just as grateful for your view, especially in this time. We hope we were able to take your mind off of things by talking a little football. And as always, have a blessed week, and we will see you in the next video.